There's a bit of a misunderstanding around martial arts that they're designed for maximum effectiveness, for the moves to be as dangerous as possible. But really, for a lot of modern martial arts, beginning as back as maybe judo, of course, aikido, hapkido, in many ways, it was designed to be safer. And what I mean by safer is that if what you're trying to do is too harmful, too great of risk to be on one side or the other of, you can't practice it. You can't get better at it. You can't drill at it. You can't develop skills at it. If there's too much of a risk of every step of the way, every moment, every practice, you might get knocked completely and permanently out of it, right? And so in Gamkedo, my focus is very much the same attitude towards game development. It's asking, how do we lower the stakes? And that's why for hobbygamedev.com, the blog I've been writing now for about 6 years, my focus is so often on what can you do at a beginning and intermediate level with almost completely non-commercial game development. Games that aren't expected to sell, don't have in-app purchases designed into them, in which, as part of that, you're trying to spend as little, if maybe none, money as possible into making that project possible. The incredible thing is actually there's more possibilities, conceptually at least, of what you can do for an unfunded, non-commercial project than what you can do for games where you put a lot of money at stake. Because as soon as you're putting money at stake, whether you're betting the farm on it, putting your savings into it, or finding outside investors, even through something like Kickstarter, all of a sudden you've got a lot of promise tied up in how that capital is going to get spent, and in having to meet public expectation to earn that revenue back. And so it's about what can be practiced safely. And it's not just about protecting your savings account either. It's also about protecting your morale. I meet a lot of game developers at all skill levels, and a lot of them have some sort of story at some point in their game development progression where they dove too deep, too fast into trying to make their dream game, and then got shattered and set back quite a bit from having realized either it was never going to get finished, or it's going to get finished in a fashion they'd be so just not proud of that they'd really diluted, watered down, and ruined an idea that they were stoked about when they started. And that loses time, that loses energy, that really pulls somebody down. And instead, I think what's important is, just like we see in the martial arts, having a clear progression for what does it mean to be a beginner? What does it mean to be intermediate? What does it mean to progress safely from one of those phases up through the next to take your development to the next level? And so I try to do the same thing with Gamkedo and game development to figure out, okay, what does beginning level work look like? What's safe to do at that space? What can you do where you're going to see results, you're going to learn the skills, you're going to get projects that are finished that you can share, and then we progress from there out of things that begin as less original, more kind of classic remakes, just pure fundamentals of gameplay and game programming, into more original projects, and then to more ambitious original projects, and then into more ambitious team projects, and so on. And it's just all about that, what's safe to practice, right? Because if you can't practice it safely, then you can't drill it, you can't learn it, you can't develop skill in it. There's no depth there. The depth comes from the reliable path to be followed of how you get better at something. That's what me and my work with Gamkedo are all about. And so when you're thinking about how you want to get into making games, I encourage you, if you were going to learn how to fight, right? Would you just jump into the ring or the hexagon or wherever you like to do your fighting onto the mat and then battle the most skilled person you could find? No, you're going to get your head torn off, right? Instead, you want to figure out what's a path you can follow, what's a training approach you can take, what's a regimen, where can you go and get a white belt, right? And then build up from there. It's exactly what I'm trying to offer with Gamkedo. It's exactly the kind of thing I'm trying to study through what I work on with my training clients and then what I develop out into the programs and material that I share with you all out there. So hopefully there's a bit of insight there as to part of why I'm calling it Gamkedo, and also maybe a little tidbit there about martial arts if they're not actually in many cases meant to be maximally fatal, maximally permanently injuring. They're meant to be safe enough to be practicable, because that's where the depth is. That's where the skill is. Anyway, Chris Dillon for Gamkedo. As always, I'll have more content for y'all soon as I look forward to playing the games in the future that you're going to make.